Thank you for staying after that brilliant interaction with Pius Enam Hajide. Now I serve you my blunt thoughts for today. I've titled it, Steering Ghana's Ship Aground, Chaos in High Places. Steering Ghana's ship aground. You know what it means to, run a ship aground, right? Steering Ghana's ship aground. Chaos in high places. Now this morning, as you can see behind me, there are a number of slides I'll be going through, and I'll be delving into two crucial issues. One, what has happened in Ashaiman on the back of military brutalities time and again. And two, the state of our economy. Oh, and better still, what our leaders have said in the past, a specific leader, and what they are saying now. I'll be going back in time, all the way till around 2012. So we pay attention to what the president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, then candidate, said, and the rhetoric he's spewing now at the State of the Nation address. But before I get into all of that, sometimes I continue with each passing day to be shocked, shattered, utterly baffled by the sort of leadership we have in this country, which is why I have termed it misleadership. Look at the entire fabric of our leadership in this country. They say one thing, do the other. They don't stick to their promises. And we ask ourselves, we ought to ask ourselves as a people, is this what we deserve? Is this the best our leaders can give to us? In manifold facets of our lives, leadership has become an utter mess, like we're seeing now. And I say it without any fear, without any favor. Look at our natural resources as a people. We have it all. We have the human resource. So why do we end up here? All the resources we have, I don't need to mention them. We've heard of them ad nauseum. We learnt about them growing up in school. Yet we're as poverty-stricken as church mouses. What exactly is happening? But the leadership debacle trickles down. And this is where the problem is. I ask myself sometimes, what are our mores as a people? What do we stand for? And no one is able to give a response because we stand for nothing. Freedom and justice is what we have in our coat of arms. Where's the freedom? And where's the justice? Where's the justice in what happened to those who live in Ashaiman and Tulaku? Where's the justice? If I'd happened to be there, just for the sake of it, maybe paying a visit to someone, and I've been apprehended, added to the bunch, flogged like an animal, and even animals don't deserve that, would that have been justice? Come with me to the slides. Now, in terms of the activities of our military personnel, I'll also be taking you down memory lane on some of what has happened in the past and why we really need to caution ourselves moving forward. Military personnel besieged Ashaiman on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, the 7th of March, 2023, with helicopters and armored vehicles. What were they going to do? Whom were they going to apprehend? Where was the intelligence? Civilians were brutalized following the murder of a military officer. And I want to say this categorically. State in no uncertain terms what happened to Imoro Sheriff dastardly act. Whoever perpetrated that should face the full rigors of the law, just as we wanted to do with Major Mahama. But to victimize people in the manner we did is idiocy. It is nonsensical. And those at the higher echelons of the military know that what I am saying is correct. Where will you ever go and see the military do this? Unless in republics that we do not want to talk about. Now, in the past 3 years, we've recorded more than 10 military brutalities, incidents of military brutality. Let's go to our next slide. Let's take a look at them. February 7, 2017, 4 died after a joint police-military force allegedly opened fire on a crowd in Fuase in the Etrima-Kwaoma area. The reason? They were protesting against the siting of the Etrima-Kwaoma district capital, Akadia, instead of Fuase. That was it. On May 30, 2017, military troops stormed and punished villagers in Dentrabwase by beating and harassment. It was on the back of the dastardly act of taking the life of Major Mahama. On April the 5th, 2017, a 28-year-old man was shot dead at the Ashaiman market by a soldier. You remember that one? I'm sure you do. It was on the back of the enforcement of COVID-19 lockdown protocols. COVID-19 in T. Someone lost his life. July 29, 2021, there was a joint team of police and soldiers who clashed with residents of Idra, leading to 2 deaths and 9 injuries. We set up a committee on that. It was over a protest concerning the killing of social activist Ibrahim Muhammad, also known as Kaka. All of these things have happened in our country. And the impact that many of us do not see starts from here. Ghana's Human Rights Index. Over the years, it's been falling. Look at right before 2016, we stood at 5.2. Just take a look, fellow Ghanaians, at where we are now. 4.1. That is where we are. It has been dipping consistently. In fact, right around getting to 2017, it appreciated, and since that time, it's been a decline. This cannot be mistaken. There's a trend, and we must nip the trend in the bud. Let's go to the next slide. Now, if you look at Ghana's Democracy Index, we've spoken about the Human Rights Index. If you look at our Democracy Index, you would also realize something startling. Before 2012, right around 2012, our index stood at around 6.02. It stood level all the way till around 2013. It appreciated all the way to 2015, the highest we have seen. And then from 2016, it has been declining to that figure that you see in 2022. And mind you, if you look at the range, 1 to 3.9 is an authoritarian regime, 4.4 to 5.9 is a hybrid regime, 6 to 7.9 is a flawed democracy, 8 to 10 is a full democracy. We're a flawed democracy, but we keep falling in terms of the ranking. And that is a very problematic subject that we ought to be looking at as a country. We ought to consider. Now let's move the conversation forward. I now want to focus a bit on His Excellency, the President, and what he's been saying about the economy. But before I get in there, I'm going to show you why many people in Ghana, especially young people, are becoming apathetic. You see what happened in Nigeria recently? Apathetic because leaders promise and don't fulfill. Kasa pa. Yanufu. And so in 2012, before the elections, there was an engagement with those who were going to stand, prominent figures who were going to contest that election, including the former President Mahama, and including then candidate Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. I want you to watch this video with me of what he said then about managing an economy and what he's saying now in the recent SONA. Watch this video.
I think that the most effective way that we can have a debt portfolio for our country that is sustainable is to make sure that the NDC loses this election in December. Kicking out the NDC will be the surest way we can to protect the debt structure of our country. Why do I say that? In the 4 years in which they have been in power, they have more than tripled our national debt from 9 billion cedis, which was at the end of Kufuor's period, to 28 billion cedis today. In the 4 years of the NDC administration, they have contracted more debt than all the governments of our country, from Kwame Nkrumah right down to John Agyekum Kufuor. That is the nature of the situation confronting our country. And I dare say the President would agree with me that without the rebasing of the economy, the debt profile of our country today will be getting towards epic proportions. So we need, when we're talking about the debt profile of our country, to bear in mind 2 things. One, the areas into which the debt goes. And I agree with some of my previous speakers that the productive investment and the rate of return on them is a critical one. Equally critical is the value for money of the transactions that the debt brings about. We need to look at that. I've given some examples of public procurements that are taking place in our country on an extremely inflated rate. Once again, we need to look at this. You're talking about loans that are given, and inside the loans, the arrangements for determining value for money remain very opaque and unclear. How can you persuade the Ghanaian people that debts are being contracted in these circumstances that are there to push forward their future? We intend to be extremely disciplined about the contraction of debt. We're first of all going to respect the teachings of the national budget and treat it as precious. We will not be stepping outside the constraints of the budget. We are going to make sure that we reduce considerably areas of corruption in the construction and execution of some of these projects. These are the critical matters that our people are looking for leadership on. That we are not going to get ourselves in airline and other aircraft and other transactions that leave so many questions to be answered. The 28 billion is even without the latest Chinese debt.
Thank you so much.
Ghana 4. The Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, who said that in 2012. Is he the same Nana Addo Akufo-Addo who said the things he did recently at the SONA? I don't know, but let's look at the facts. The president said at SONA 2023, our currency has been buffeted, the inflationary rate has been very high. For the first time in our lives, debt exchanges have become the language of everyday conversation. Now, who calls them? Me? On to the next slide. Let me state emphatically that we have not been reckless in borrowing and in spending. It is worth noting that the debts we are servicing were not only contracted during the period of this administration. Listen to the rhetoric. I dare say no one can suggest we have overborrowed or spent recklessly, even when global bodies, our own professors of economics and finance here have said that we have overborrowed. Well, let me state emphatically, Mr. President, that we have overborrowed. We have dug ourselves into a pit, Mr. President, and you have superintended over that. Look at our public debt in billions of cedis. We start from a base rate from around, what? At the start of our fourth Republican experiment. Then you come to around 2008, 9.7 billion. That was our debt stock. You come to somewhere around 2013, 53 billion. Incremental, but still manageable, looking at the progress of the country. You come to 2015, thereabouts, it's 122 billion. Let's do some quick mathematics. This, this would be about fivefold this sum, a little over fivefold. This would be a little over twofold the sum in 2013, thereabouts. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how do we explain moving from 9.7 billion, 122 billion to 575.7 billion Ghana cedis? This administration has accrued about 480 billion in addition to our debt stock from 122 billion. But it's not a problem. Next slide. Borrowing is not a problem, else even the Americans wouldn't be borrowing. But the point is, when you borrow, what do you use the money for? Does it inure to the benefit of the ordinary Kofi, the ordinary Amma, the ordinary Razak, the ordinary Nina? That's the point. Do these borrowings lead to projects that are self-sustaining, fund-generating, so that over time they pay for themselves? If I were to ask you, watching me this morning, the 570-something billion that we owe, the 480+ billion cedis that have been, added on to our debt stock, what can we see and say that, oh, we invested them in this particularly? What would you say? Free SHS, it's only a few billions of Ghana cedis. Very few that we've spent on free SHS. Intisikano, yadi yedeng. Ewahe. Anasikano yakoje de yedeng. So just to wrap my piece this morning, 2000 to 2008, NPP under Kufuor the amount added to the debt stock then, 4.82 billion. We arrived at a total debt of 9.7 billion. 2009 to 2012, under Mills, 26.25 billion. The total then was 36 billion. 2013 to 2016, NDC, John Mahama, 86.17 billion. That was added to the debt stock, making it 122 billion. 2017 to 2022, November. We're not even adding up to now. Now, this is an economy that was struck by COVID, but got some 25.1 billion Ghana cedis as a boon. COVID was a curse and a blessing. We didn't take advantage of the blessing. It's like that story about a half full or half empty glass. We choose to look at it as half empty, but it was half full. NPP, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Amount added to the debt stock, 453.5 billion. Your total debt stock, 575.7 billion. Need I say more? But we cannot throw our hands in the air in despair. We must trudge on. But if these misleaders continue like this, only God knows when our beloved country, Ghana, will capitulate. We pray against that, but if you keep doing the wrong things, it's only a matter of time. My name is Benjamin Akaku. I share my thoughts blunt, raw, hot, just the way it is, because guess what? Someone must say it. And I will stand in the gap and say it for God and country. Thank you for watching.